Hello, I am Father Balmex Pereira, Assistant Professor of Botany at St. Joseph Vaz College, Korthali. And today we are dealing with plant ecology and phytogeography for the third year students of Bachelor of Science in Botany, course code BOC 110. In this particular module, we are going to study the structure and functions of ecosystem. In the previous module, we have seen the ecosystem itself and ecology. We will be studying in this particular module the structure of ecosystem and the functions of ecosystem. At the end of this module, it explains to us the structure of ecosystem, how the ecosystems are. It also lists different features of ecosystem and it identifies what are the functions of an ecosystem. Let's see, this is what we have seen in the previous module. An ecosystem is a structural and functional unit of ecology where there is interrelationship between the living organisms and their environment. So we have seen that biotic, that is the living organisms, are in constant interaction with its non-living component, the non-living component of the ecosystem, that is biotic and abiotic components. We have also seen how these components are, that is biotic and abiotic. We have producers, consumers, decomposers, and we have the abiotic factors like climatic, edaphic, and topographic factors, and they are in constant interaction with one another. That is, the producers, consumers, decomposers are in relation and interaction with each other, and they also interact with abiotic component. Now the structure of ecosystem. When there is a interaction between this biotic and abiotic components, it results into a physical structure that is created in each ecosystem. So every ecosystem in previous module which we had seen, there are terrestrial ecosystems and aquatic ecosystems. So each type of ecosystem will create a physical structure that can be observed and that can be understood. So this physical structure will have certain things in it. That is, first of all, species composition. You can identify and enumerate different plants and animal species in particular ecosystem. May it be forest ecosystem, tundra ecosystem, desert ecosystem, grassland ecosystem, or aquatic ecosystems like freshwater ecosystem and marine ecosystem. So as the species are present, different species are present and they interact with each other, there is created a so-called a layer, a strata, and that is what we call as stratification. So that stratification is vertical distribution and arrangement of different species at different levels. Let's try to understand this, how it is. So it is different layers that are within the ecosystem, within that particular area. So we see in front of us physically. So we see the layers. Top layer, we will have trees because trees are big ones. In the second layer, we have shrubs, which will be intermittent. And at the bottom layer, we have the herbs and the grasses. So this will be the stratification of plant life. In this plant life, in this ecosystem, we also have other life forms along with the plants. So when the life forms in plants are observed, there might be herbs, they might be shrubs, or they might be trees, or they might be climbers, or they might be even underwater life forms. So all these life forms which are present in the structure of an ecosystem, they interact with one another. We have been saying this very often, there is interaction, and with interaction comes sociability, where the plants and animals interact with each other. This is an example of forest ecosystem. We can see the layers, the strata. In this particular ecosystem, we have 4 stratas. That is, top layer, we have the trees. We can see this big tree in the forest. In the second layer, we can see the shrubs over here, which are below the big tree. So we can call that as a second layer. In the bottom layer, we have the herbs and the grasses that might be growing. We can see it all around in the forest ecosystem. At the same time, we have the epiphytes which are growing on the tree. There can be epiphytes, there can be lichens, there can be mosses which are growing on the tree, which are growing on the ground. So they will be having a different strata. So this is stratification. We can understand stratification by looking at this forest ecosystem. In the grassland ecosystem, if we take it as an example, we don't see many layers, just one or two layers. Especially vegetation is dominated by grasses and herbs, which are at the bottom layer. There will be animals which visit this grassland, so they belong to that second strata. So one or two layers can be observed in the grassland ecosystem. In the marine ecosystem, which we can call as one of the most dynamic ecosystem, we have many life forms. We can have crustaceans, we can have mollusks, we can have shellfish, we can have other fish. There can be even plants which are on the shore and even in water. So there are different life forms that can be observed in the marine ecosystem that makes it very dynamic and different from forest ecosystem. So seas and oceans, they also have salt content. They have greater biodiversity in comparison to freshwater ecosystem and even the forest ecosystem or all other ecosystem. So because of this biodiversity, this rich biodiversity, we can call the marine ecosystem as very dynamic ecosystem. Now all these ecosystems have certain functions to perform because there are interactions that are going on all the while. So if the interactions are going on, it is because there are producers, there are consumers, and there are decomposers, as we have seen in the previous module. So there is productivity. Producers produce. So depending upon what type of producers we have, depending upon the dynamism of the ecosystem itself, we can rate the ecosystem as most productive ecosystem or least productive ecosystem. So since we have aquatic ecosystems and terrestrial ecosystems, both are productive in its own way, but when both come together, the productivity can be very dynamic, and that we can see in the wetlands where we have the aquatic ecosystem and the terrestrial ecosystem coming together. So we can easily say that the wetlands are the most productive of all ecosystem. The least productive could be the deserts, where we don't have much of producers. So the productivity will be less. The interactions also will be less. Vegetation will be less. So as we know, it is vegetation that produces. So the productivity automatically becomes less. Now when we look at this productivity, primarily we can see this productivity in every ecosystem. We can look at this productivity as productivity of that particular area or that particular ecosystem, where we will call it as gross primary productivity for that particular ecosystem. And all the ecosystems around, that is the entire area, if we take it together, it is the net primary productivity. So we have GPP and NPP. This productivity is basically because of the functions of the ecosystem. The ecosystems not only produce, but there is also decomposition that is happening. That is, when there is interaction between producers, consumers, and the decomposers, with decomposition, it goes back into nature. It goes back into the ecosystem. So what is it that goes back into the ecosystem? Basically, it is an energy. There is biomass that is created in this energy flow. So in further modules, we will be also learning about the energy flow. We will be learning about the nutrient cycling, because these nutrients need to keep cycling from producers to consumers, from consumers to decomposers, from decomposers to back to earth, and from earth back to the producers, and the cycle goes on. So there are different nutrients that are present in the ecosystem, and these different nutrients are required for the dynamism of this ecosystem. So that is what we are going to learn in the further modules that we will be going through in this plant ecology and phytogeography. These are our references which you can go through. Thank you.